The Sumerians, though not the earliest inhabitants of Mesopotamia, are among the earliest known groups to have inhabited the region. Alongside the Egyptians, they are renowned for developing a fully systematized culture, including a developed writing system. When I say fully developed, I mean a writing system capable of expressing complete sentences. The Sumerians are also known for building some of the earliest cities in the world, starting from the 4th millennium BCE, and they were pioneers in developing the calendar and time system we still use today, borrowing from the Sumerian language. Of course, we are referring to the people who lived in the land of Sumer and those who created the distinctive culture we call Sumerian. We are also referring to those who spoke Sumerian, the language we have learned about when the pictographic script of southern Mesopotamia was deciphered. However, a mystery that puzzles scholars relates to the origin of the Sumerians. How long were they in Mesopotamia before the development of writing in urban culture, and did they come from elsewhere? The origin of the Sumerians has been a fiercely debated topic for over a century. I believe the first question we should ask is, what is the earliest evidence of the existence of the Sumerians in southern Mesopotamia? The appearance of texts written in Sumerian and containing enough inscriptions indicates that even the earliest syllabic texts in southern Mesopotamia predate the writing of pictographic script in Sumerian. We may safely go back to neatly drawn pictographic logographs in syllabic texts. This takes us to around 3600 to 3500 BCE, but before that we have no direct evidence for this question. If they could identify those individuals as Sumerians, the initial view was that Sumerians had short, wide skulls, while Semitic people in the region had long, narrow skulls. However, the issue remains that there is still a scarcity of well-preserved skulls to examine, etc., to strengthen theories based on skeletal evidence. Iconographic representations of bones will be included in their proposals, where they will seek similar imagery in the art of neighboring peoples, compare it with their own bones, and draw conclusions. But clearly, symbolic representations were conventionalized throughout that part of the world, and thus it cannot truly be linked with skeletal data over time as material evidence is collected. It's clear that the population of Mesopotamia was much more complex than previously thought, making the search for the Sumerian ethnicity even more challenging. Relying on skeletal evidence is futile, and connecting Sumerian culture to a specific ethnicity has hit a dead end. The relationship between Sumerian culture and the Sumerian language is universally accepted by scholars because ultimately, language is a part of culture. However, even history, tracing human movements by reconstructing linguistic family trees and shedding light on the geographical origins of many language speakers, cannot help us with this issue, as the Sumerian language has no known relatives. It is neither Semitic nor Indo-European. Efforts have been made to link it to modern languages like Turkish, Hungarian, or even Sino-Tibetan languages, but these are often unconvincing, as they often rely on simplistic sound and meaning comparisons without regard for grammar. A more serious effort has been made to link it to Uralic language family, but this has garnered little attention, mostly due to our limited knowledge of Sumerian phonology, so most scholars still view it as an isolated language. At present, formally speaking, Sumerian does have some grammatical features similar to some other languages, such as Georgian, Basque, and an early Siberian language called Chuchi. But this doesn't really help us determine the origin of the Sumerians, because similar features have arisen independently globally. Nobody truly knows where the Sumerian language comes from, so this won't help us determine how long the Sumerians were in Mesopotamia until their textual experiments begin. These are the archaeological periods being considered, with the earliest pictographic texts dating back to the Uruk period, a time witnessing the emergence of urbanism in Mesopotamia. Scholars generally agree that the latest possible time for the appearance of the Sumerians here is just before 3600 BCE. The pre-Doric period, partly overlapping with the Ubaid period, is when the alluvial plain of southern Mesopotamia was first settled, and the Sumerians were there during the Ubaid period. Scholars disagree on the most likely scenario, with some leaning towards the view that the Sumerians were in Mesopotamia from the beginning of the Ubaid period, and possibly even earlier, being among the first settlers on the alluvial plain. Evidence for this mainly comes from archaeological records in the Ubaid period and early Uruk periods not showing any cultural change that could indicate the influx of a new group into the Ubaid material culture area, appearing too seamlessly and smoothly, evolving into Uruk material culture. The architectural forms of temples and cult practices show continuity rather than change. A competing hypothesis is that the Sumerians arrived in Mesopotamia more recently, when their pictographic texts began to be written as evidence for this. Scholars favoring this view are drawn primarily by the Sumerian language. The Sumerians use these words, including the names of the Euphrates River, which they call Buranon, and the Tigris River, which they call Idiglit, and the names of some major settlements including Eridu, Ur, Larsa, Easton, Lagash, Nippur, and Kish. This suggests that these cities were established before the Sumerians arrived there, and the Sumerians simply continued to use their original names, as well as some basic words related to agriculture and agricultural tools, such as words for plow, hoe, farmer, barley, and Basque words for urban crafts such as blacksmith, potter, carpenter, mason, which seem to not be Sumerian words. So it seems that the Sumerians moved into this area and learned these words from those who used this technology. The argument that proponents of the first hypothesis put against. As for DNA, this could shed light on the topic, although not much work on this question has been done in genetics. However, an interesting study was conducted on the modern Arab marsh people, who have lived for a long time in the marshes of southern Iraq, right where the Sumerians once lived. The question was whether the Arab marsh people are descendants of the Sumerians or a group that migrated to the area. Subsequent genetic research has shown that the modern Arab marsh people's DNA and Y chromosome are predominantly of ancient Middle Eastern origin, so they could very well be descendants of the Sumerians. These people have significant genetic links to ancient India or South Asian ancestors, indicating that the Sumerians did not come from South Asia in the early days. Based on DNA evidence, we will have to wait to see if there is really no way to know how long the Sumerians were in Mesopotamia or where they came from, making it a mystery that may never be solved. According to various sources from Wikipedia, many believe that the Sumerians were a North African ethnic group who migrated from the Green Sahara into the Middle East and were responsible for spreading agriculture in the region. However, contrasting evidence clearly shows that the first agricultural civilization originated from the Fertile Crescent. Though not specifically discussing the Sumerians, Lazaridis et al. In 2016 suggested a partial North African origin for some prehistoric cultures in the Middle East, especially the Natufians, after testing the genomes of individuals from the late Neolithic and Natufian cultures. Additionally, a genetic analysis in 2013 of 4 ancient Mesopotamian DNA samples showed genetic affinities between the Sumerians and the Indus Valley civilization, possibly as a result of ancient Indus-Mesopotamian interactions. Some scholars link the Sumerians to the Hurrians and Urartians, suggesting the Caucasus as their homeland. Prehistoric inhabitants of this region before the Sumerians are referred to as primitive Euphratians or Ubaidians, believed to have evolved from the Samara culture in northern Mesopotamia. The Ubaidians, although never directly referenced by the Sumerians themselves, are considered by modern scholars to be the earliest civilization in Sumer. They drained marshes for agriculture, developed trade, and established industries including weaving, leatherworking, metallurgy, construction, and pottery. King Sumer ascended to the throne of Ur, possibly Ur-Pabilzag, along with his courtiers, the standard of Ur circa 2600 BCE. Some scholars argue the idea of a primitive Euphratean language or a proto-language. They suggest that Sumerian might have originally been the language of hunting and fishing tribes living in marshlands and coastal areas of eastern Arabia, as part of the Arabian bifacial culture. Juris Zarins believes that the Sumerians lived along the eastern Arabian coastline in the present-day Persian Gulf region before this area was flooded at the end of the Ice Age. So, where do you think the origins of the Sumerians lie? Drop your comments below to let me know. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to subscribe and like to support us.